Feel like a money match fight night finna happen tonight, boy.
Welcome back, Reed.
But I, for one, am excited like it's a real fight tonight. Because this has been well overdue, and we just got to see what these two have prepared. And I'm just wondering if it's going to be. This is my prediction. I think Trump is going to come and he is going to try to lie his way through this, especially because they're muting mics now. They're muting the mics, and I feel like Trump is going to use that to his advantage to not get fact-checked and interrupted and whatnot. So he's going to have to get off a bunch of stuff that don't make no sense, and Kamala's going to have to address it while only having a certain amount of time to address his BS and give her takes on whatever the question that's posed is. And it's going to cut into her being able to elaborate on her points. So I really do wish they did not have to cut the mics off. But Trump's handler said he can't be unleashed. We have to keep some type of chain on him. Says he ain't going to be on no teleprompter and ain't got no script. What I don't know, though, is if they get all the questions pre the debate.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
I ain't got 1080, man.
Tonight's meeting
Come on now.
could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
I don't know why my microphone has this hiss.
And that brings
man.
us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Why are you looking at her like that?
Kamala Harris.
Look, she went. She came to shake his hand, and he wasn't gonna do it. He went straight to the podium.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country.
Let's go.
Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut
He's not talking about the future.
for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford
She's
to
giving
buy
him
a
an easy
crib,
reason to
buy a
just
car
make
seat,
excuses
buy
and
clothes
lie.
for their children.
This is giving him a reason to lie, bro.
One of them is small businesses. I was actually
You're talking
my
about
mother
your
raised
plan.
my
He
sister
said, "Are
and me,
people better
but
now?"
There was a woman who helped raise
He
us.
didn't
We
ask
call
you
her
what
our
your
second
plan
mother.
is.
She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before. which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his
now let's see what happens
if
he just says some incoherent rambling.
Should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Damn, that just blew me.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that.
I have no sales
we're doing
tax.
Tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial.
Neither one of them going to answer the question.
Billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation.
No inflation?
We've had
Come
a
on now.
terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before. Probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans.
See, the problem is now it seems like he's actually answering the question.
Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield,
it feels like he's
Ohio.
actually answering, even though he's lying.
In Colorado, they are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country.
At least Kamala wasn't lying, and she talked about what she's going to do.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
Because he's just going to keep saying I have nothing to do with it.
I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute to respond.
It's so like...
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
It's annoying.
That's out there.
It's annoying.
I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely.
I don't want to read
it.
But you said you know that there's stuff in there that you don't like.
Some ideas, I guess some good, some bad.
See?
But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially.
Open book. You ain't open the book for them taxes.
Like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic.
That's not true. Sorry.
And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were
the great job.
These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for
How many
you.
times can they respond?
And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America.
This is true. This did
What
happen.
Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode
and that's the thing. She at least named a source for why she's saying it. He just says shit. He doesn't even source what he's saying.
Increase inflation, and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you, because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that.
Why are you talking
I went to the
without
Wharton
your
School
turn to
of
talk?
Finance, and many of those professors,
I guess
the top
maybe he
professors,
thought they didn't
think
turn it
my
on in
plan is
time.
a
That's all.
brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and
How many
work
times
and,
can it go back and forth?
create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President,
Take
I do
a
wanna
look at
drill
her
down on
plan.
something you
She
both
doesn't have
brought
a
up.
plan.
The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what
The
she
tariff
calls is
shit is
essentially a
stupid.
national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that
stupid.
you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer.
Exactly.
Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication,
Oh, no, that's the
arguing
light.
it costs the typical family nearly $4,000
Please
a year.
answer.
Do you
Please
believe
answer.
Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices.
Why?
What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices
Why?
is China and all of the countries
You
that have
can't
been
just
ripping
say
us
that.
off for years. I was the only president ever.
You can't just say we're
China
not.
was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
Bro,
the people of our country
he
are
just told you
absolutely
tariffs
dying
will
with what they've
put-
done.
it will
They've
be
destroyed
passed on
the
to
economy.
us.
And all you have to do is look at a poll.
You can't just say
The
they
polls
won't.
say 80 and 85 and
Kamala,
even
please insult
90%
him.
that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He
she's not
invited
lying,
trade
at
wars.
least.
You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology. So
She
that
even
we
sounds
win the
like
race
she
on
knows what she's
AI
talking
and
about.
quantum computing.
He just
Focusing
says a
on
bunch of
what we
shit
need
that doesn't
to
make
do
sense.
to support America's workforce, so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that she was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID?
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my
That was
philosophy.
funny.
But
that was
if she
funny.
ever got elected,
Even she
changed
laughed
it,
at that.
and
That was funny.
It will be the
That
end
was
of
funny.
our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well.
She said,
but when you look at
interesting.
what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15
You
that people
believe?
say, and I think it's a lot higher than
You
the 21.
believe?
That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing
You
to our country.
believe?
They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade.
It would be a
Last year,
woman
you said that
asking,
you were
too.
proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many
You can't hold both
with
of
regard
those.
to your 6-week abortion ban because you
can't hold
initially had
both.
said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban.
Hard questions.
Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the
Hard
reason
question.
I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even
Oh,
have,
my
and you can
God.
look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job. But the governor before,
There's
he
no
said the
9-month
baby will be born,
abortion.
and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the
That's
baby.
not an
And that's why I
abortion.
did that, because that predominates.
murder.
Because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential
Oh, my
pick, which I think was a
gosh.
horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer
my God.
abortion, because the
That's
baby
not
is
even
born
what we're talking
is
about.
Okay, and that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do
6.
that. Now, I believe in
Really?
the exceptions.
That- he
for
just basically
rape,
admitted
incest,
that there
and
was
life
all
of the
shills
mother.
for
I
him.
believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan
was
did
9 of
also.
them that voted it.
85% of Republicans do.
But he knows that he
Exceptions.
needed those
Very
6 to get it
important.
overturned.
But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first
That's crazy.
time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years.
No, you tore it
Every
apart
legal
with that.
scholar, every
Nobody wanted to
Democrat,
overturn.
Every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the
You're
states where the people
lying.
could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did.
It
a great
wasn't
service
tied
in doing
up.
it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby
after
it's
the-
born.
Thank
Madam
you.
Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to
Sounded
hear
like
bunch of
a
lies,
freaking
and that's
psycho.
not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here.
He's
Donald
psycho.
Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with
Wild.
the intention that they
Wild.
would undo the protections
Yep.
of Roe v. Wade.
Yep.
And
That's
they did
wild.
exactly as he intended.
Exactly.
And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
What?
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation.
He jumped to an extreme that's not happening. Her extreme, at least, is something that's possible.
To their body
that's not most abortions.
Immoral. And
but his extreme, they're having abortions in the 9th month. Shut up.
To agree, the government and Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country.
And I bet
you want to talk about
can't
this is what people wanted?
Nobody wanted
pregnant
that.
Women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that.
Nobody asked. I don't. That's the. He talking about some liberals and shit. I want to hear what he says.
To put back in place
and I'm glad she checked him on that 9-month crap.
As President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project
she said, if he gonna lie, I'm allowing him.
I
don't know if he ever said that. She kind of lied on him.
Monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted.
Quit saying that everybody wanted.
Everybody else.
Nobody was asking for that, bro.
Every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting.
For that, bro.
And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible.
Nobody wanted it. Of course we didn't think it was possible.
What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe.
How?
The student loans, and then her, I think
the student loans.
Her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look,
because he's on vacation.
Her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea.
All.
And
some
how
students
unfair
did get
that
their
would have
student
been
loans
part of the reason
canceled.
they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look,
I didn't say.
We don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans.
Some student loans
They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done.
I hope they bring up his disastrous answer for child care. I hope they bring that up
because
he didn't even speak.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that he would even say that. That's insane that he would say that, for real.
Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and
Why
get the
she
help
say that like
she
that's
needs. Barely can
sitting
afford
next
to
to
do
strangers?
it, and what you are
Like
putting
what?
her through
What does that have to do
is
with it?
unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
Changed
and
her
that is
words
why
to be more
in every
honest.
state where this issue has been on the ballot,
She said
in red
American.
and blue
She said
states
majority
both,
of Americans,
the people
which
of
is true.
America have
Majority of
voted for
Americans
freedom.
are for.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to
abortion.
respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you
Oh
do
my
that?
gosh.
Why don't you ask her
Why-
that question?
why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Right, right.
could
Would
do
you veto?
abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill.
I wonder what he's
going
going to say, because there's so many Republicans that agreed with that.
Fixing a problem.
They like confirmed that shit
understand,
on camera.
this
They said he
comes at a
denied
time
it for his
where
benefit.
The people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
He don't know what he's talking about.
Windmills cause cancer.
Hey,
and what you will also notice
stupid.
is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Hey, she finna hit that
and
man
I will
ego.
tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about
hit that
is you.
Ooh.
You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
She's
Vice
just
President Harris,
smoked
thank you.
him
President Trump,
for.
on that point, I want
She
to get your
just
response.
smoked him for that.
Why did you try to kill that
She
bill and
just
successfully
smoked
so? That would
him.
have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies. The
People
most
don't leave my
incredible
rallies.
in the history
He
of
is hurt.
politics.
He
That's
don't know what
because
to
people
do.
wanna
She
take
just
their
smoked
country
him.
back. Our country
He
is
doesn't
being
know what
lost.
to do.
We're a
He doesn't know what to
failing
do.
nation.
She just scrambled his
3.5
brain.
years ago.
She hit that
and
ego.
What's going
She hit
on
that
here,
ego.
you're going to end up
She
in
hit that
World War
ego.
III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield.
She
a
broke
lot of
this
towns
man.
don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
People leave
in
early.
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating.
She broke him. She broke him.
The people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
She broke him.
Rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring
But what
our
about them
country back.
leaving?
They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not
She
only
broke
success,
him.
will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused
And he
by
just got up there and said it.
within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this.
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
People on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President
That's
Harris, I'll let you respond to
Crazy,
the rest
bro.
of what you've heard.
Kamala film. She like
Talk
this.
about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why
God.
in this election, I actually have the endorsement
Oh, my God.
of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His
Come on,
former
Kamala.
chief of staff, a
Come on,
four-star
Kamala.
general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His
Come
former
on.
national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former
These are
Secretary
facts. These
of
are
Defense
verifiable
has said the
facts.
nation, the republic, would never survive
Trump finna just
another
say shit.
Trump term.
He finna just say shit.
And when we listen
These are verifiable
to this kind
facts.
of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
You fired
Not
them
so
why?
graciously.
Because they
did
weren't your
bad
fucking
things
lackeys.
or a bad job. I fired them. They never
they
fired
weren't-
one person. They didn't fire
'Cause they-
anybody having to do with Afghanistan
fired people
and
that
the
weren't your
Taliban
lackeys,
and the
bro.
13 people whose were
Oh,
just killed,
shit.
viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper,
people
he
you
was
pick.
no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way.
being president
not
is
to
not
have
a
books written
business.
about you. But
That's
just
the
to
problem.
finish,
You
I
talking
got
about
more
fired
votes than any Republican in history by far.
Because it was the most
In fact,
charged
I got more
election.
votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
What?
Let me continue on immigration.
How
It was
is
what
that
we wanted to talk about
possible?
earlier, so let's get back to your deportation
I wish they addressed
proposal
that. What?
that the vice president has
He
reacted
doesn't have-
to
he
as
didn't
well.
get more votes than
President
Joe
Trump,
Biden.
You
What
call
is he
this the
talking
largest domestic
about?
deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have
How you gonna
no
afford
problem
that?
using the
With
U.S.
local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police.
How you gonna afford
how would
that,
you,
sir?
deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
It is much higher
Yeah.
because of them. They allowed
That's not-
criminals,
it's not
many,
about
many
because of who.
millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists.
It's
they
not
allowed
about because of who.
common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries, like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela
What's good with you? Appreciate you for sliding through the laugh.
Is way down. You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country.
Paisley Jane.
This will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except
all he's
here.
doing is talk about doom and gloom.
And through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof.
It's not. Crime is down. Crime is down.
Migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
they are fact-checking him.
They were defrauding statements. They didn't
notice Kamala ain't been fact-checked yet.
They didn't include the cities with
Kamala
the
ain't
crime.
been fact-checked yet.
It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect
you mean
for law
looks good as far as her
former
appearance,
Vice
or you mean looks good as far as her
defunding
performance?
Federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American
eyes have
people
kind
are
of looked like that the whole time.
with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me.
They kind of
Every
always
one
been
of those
looking
cases
glossy.
Was started by them against their political opponent.
So, I don't
and
know
I'm
if it's
winning
just her
most
eyes
of them, and
or
I will
maybe
win
the
the
way the
rest on
light's hitting
appeal.
them or whatever.
And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country.
He's the only person that's been
weaponized the
fact-checked
Justice
this whole
Department.
time.
Every one of those cases
I
was
hope
involved
if she
with
does
the
lie, they
DOJ,
fact-check her.
from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General
she
of New
hasn't
York
really
and the DA
lied.
in New York.
She's
Every one of
she's
those
kind of
cases.
diverted from
And
questions,
then
but she hasn't
they say,
lied.
"Oh,
She has not
he's a
lied
criminal."
yet.
They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents
And
case?
he getting real
They said, "Oh,
animated."
that's the toughest of them all. A
think he
complete
is
and total
upset.
victory. 2 months ago,
He
it
is
was
upset.
thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election.
President
They're
Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Really quick.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize
You did
the
say that.
Department
You
of
said that.
Justice
Why are you
against
shaking your
his
head?
political
You said that
enemies.
too. She's
Someone
not
who has
lying.
openly
You said all of
expressed
this.
disdain for members of our military. Understand
This is all true.
what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because
This is
certainly
true.
we know now the court won't stop him. We know
This is
J.D.
true.
Vance is not going to stop him.
We
It's
know
up to the
J.D.
American
Vance not
people.
going to stop him
Vice President
because J.D. admitted to it.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
We gotta
This is the
continue
one
here.
that
What?
weaponized,
He not
me. She weaponized. I probably took a
He
bullet to
wasn't
the
supposed to be
head
able to respond.
because of the things that they say about
You didn't take
me.
a bullet to
They
the
talk
head. You
about
took a bullet to the ear.
democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President,
fake
I'm not fat,
Russia
you are.
investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get
I'm
to.
not
Lindsay.
fat, you
Vice
are.
President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings.
Hard
now
questions
you're
for
taking
both.
a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so
Hard
many of your
questions for both.
policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as
Straight
Vice
up
President of the
answering
United
the
States.
question,
And in fact,
even though
I
it's
was the
one that
tie-breaking
looks
vote
bad.
on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved
told us this,
and was able
Kamala.
to buy our
Address the
first home when I
question.
was a teenager.
Address the
The
damn
values I
question.
bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work.
Both.
To say we
Oh,
are
yeah.
going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work.
Yeah, she
that is
looks
related
nice,
to
and
having
he
a
looks
friend
he
when
looks
I was in high
terrible
school
as far
who
as
was
performance
sexually
and
assaulted by her
looked terrible.
stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women
Yeah.
and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president
backed
who
up for a minute,
actually
heard you
brings
laughing and missed
values
something. Oh,
and
sorry.
a perspective that is about lifting
If I
people
laughed
up
over them, I'm sorry.
and not beating people down. And name
My
calling.
bad.
The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually
But he was-
understands that
he was
strength is
losing
not
it,
in
and I
beating
couldn't
people
help
down,
it.
It's in
It was
lifting
funny.
people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens,
Did she
and
say
a great
400
father, and
million?
I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and
What's
I built
a
it into
tiny
many,
fraction
many
for you?
billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when
A
people
tiny
see it,
fraction
they are
for you
even
is still
surprised.
millions,
so
sir.
we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff
Yeah,
up.
man. Oh, okay.
Very
That's why you. Okay, I
wrongly,
see what's
very
happening. You catching
horribly,
up, and yeah.
everybody's laughing at
Okay.
it. Okay, they're all laughing at it.
She just
she
said
gave
she-
up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like she was big on
I thought she
defund
had
the
no
police.
policies.
In Minnesota, she
thought
went
she had
out.
no
Wait a
policies.
minute, I'm talking now.
She
You
didn't
don't
say
mind,
anything.
please.
Oh,
Does that sound familiar?
he just tried
She
that.
went out. She went out in Minnesota.
He just
and
tried
wanted to
that.
let criminals that killed
Sound
people,
familiar?
that burned down Minneapolis. She went
He
out
came
and
ready
raised
with
money to
that
get
one,
him out
tough.
of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one.
She
to
just
finish one
said
thing
she
so important,
won't
in my
do it.
opinion. So
You can't
I
say
got
it
the oil business
after.
going like nobody
If you
has
said
ever
it
done
before, that's one thing.
When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up
Exactly, like
the
saying,
roof.
like, I'm
They
talking-
immediately
nobody
let
heard her
these
say
guys
anything.
Go
It was
to where
stupid.
they were.
Because we
I
couldn't
would
hear
have
her
been
at all.
Five
We didn't
times,
hear her.
4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar.
so
where they
crazy.
need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar. but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
He is
Lindsay,
insane.
thank you. We have an election in just 56 days.
He is
I want to
insane.
talk about the peaceful
He literally
transfer
is
of
saying
power,
a bunch
which,
of-
of course, we all know is a
Yes.
cornerstone of our democracy
Yes.
and the role
Yes.
of the president
Yes.
in a moment of crisis.
Talk
Mr.
about
President, on
talk
January
about him
6th,
not
you
not
told your
giving it.
supporters to march to the Capitol.
say
You
that
said
he
you
would
would be
never
right there with them.
crisis. He gonna
The
be
country and the
always
world
gonna-
saw what played out at the
It's-
Capitol
man,
that day.
I think
the
she probably
officers
can't now
coming under
because-
attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold
Because
on
that topic
television
went.
off the Oval Office.
Unless it gets to come back
you
up
did send
again.
out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message.
Why he's shaking
telling
his
your
head.
supporters to
That's
go
what happened.
home.
That's
Is
what
there
happened.
anything you regret about what you did on that
Let's
day?
see if you're human.
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And
Ignore the
nobody
question.
on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt
What?
was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have
What do you
never,
mean?
ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do
She
this
tried to
group
get
of
into the
people that have
room.
been treated so badly. I ask, what about all
missed
the
my
people that are
notes.
pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border
Wait,
czar
we're
because
talking
she's
about
embarrassed by the
January
border.
6th.
She
How
said
did
at
we
the
get to the
beginning.
border?
Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about
Wait,
the border yet. That's
we're talking about
because
January
she
6th.
knows
How
what
did we
a
get to
bad
the
job
border?
They've done. What about those people?
What-
When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those
How did we
people
get
going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted?
Yeah, he was
Or in
tripping, that's
Seattle?
why.
They went into Seattle. They took over a big
Look how we
percentage
talking.
of the city
He
of
is
Seattle.
so
When are those
mad. He
people
is
gonna be
irate.
prosecuted?
But
He
let me
is
just ask you,
You might
irate.
ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television.
Yes.
It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret?
You regret.
about what
Thank
you
you
did
for
on that day?
re-asking. Yes,
I
I had
is
nothing
anything
to
you
do with
regret?
that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C.
Do you
and the
regret?
mayor put
You're
it
not
back in
human.
writing, as you
He's
know.
not a human.
I said, you know,
He's
this
not
is
a
going to be
human.
a very big
This is
rally or
crazy.
whatever you want to call it. And again, it
He
wasn't
don't
done by me.
care.
It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her
You
daughter
coulda called
has
the
a
National
tape of her
Guard.
saying she is fully responsible for what
Because
happened.
she felt
They
she's a
wanna get rid of
freaking
that tape.
adult.
It would
that
have
felt
never
bad.
happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not
To
about
prove if
former
what
Speaker
exists.
Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
They're making it so
I was
known
the
that Trump
vice
is.
president
He's
elect. I
like.
was also an acting
He's an-
senator.
he's an
I was
imbecile.
there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob.
Yeah, he's definitely.
attack our nation's
His age is
capital,
showing.
to desecrate our
His
nation's
age.
capital. On that
While
day,
they was so worried about
140
Biden?
law enforcement officers were injured, and some died.
This is insane.
And understand, the former
they-
president has
some
been
did die
indicted
afterwards
and impeached
because of what happened that
for
day.
exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president at the time say?
Yeah, like
There were
he's
fine
saying that as
people on
if
each side.
political
Let's
leaders
remember
led that shit.
That when it came to the
He's
Proud
not
Boys, a
taking any
militia,
responsibility for January 6th.
The president
And as a
said, the
freaking
former president
president
said,
of the United
"Stand
States
back
to
and
not
stand
take
by."
fault about anything?
So for everyone
What?
watching who remembers what January 6th was,
Exactly.
I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And
yes.
be clear on that point.
Yes.
Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Did he say that?
Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back.
Did he say that?
Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards.
I don't know if him saying. I know that other guy said something about a bloodbath.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you
not
would say,
only
debunked.
tired,
Laura
he's
Sean
flustered.
Hannity,
She got under his
Jessica,
skin.
All of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect.
If he said that, that's crazy.
In almost every newspaper.
That's
but
crazy.
They still
I
bring
didn't know
it
he
up,
said
just
that.
like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this: you talk about the Capitol.
Oh yeah, the auto industry
Why
comment.
Are we allowing
that
these
yes,
millions
I
of
remember
people
that.
to come through on the
he said
southern
the auto
border?
industry.
How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it.
Y'all PP keep
I would
having
say
had a
when we
last
both
word.
Leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time.
What?
Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills.
You
They have the
killed
right to
that
do it.
bill.
The President of the United States,
You
you'll
killed
get him out
it.
of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration
Wow,
here tonight.
unlike
focus
J6.
on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote,
I watched
you
his
lost by
rallies
a
too.
whisker,
I watched
that you,
them
quote,
too.
didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you
Yep.
lost in
No,
2020?
I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say-
Oh, you said you
sarcastically,
came
but
up
no,
short?
It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker.
Yes.
It was said sarcastically. Look.
That wasn't
there's so much
sarcastic.
proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has
You're
ever gotten. I was
making
told
shit
if I got
up.
63, which was
He's
what I
still
got in
crazy.
2016. You can't
He's still
be beaten.
crazy, yo. He's
The
still
election,
crazy.
People should
He's
never
still
be
crazy.
thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We
He's
need
still
walls.
crazy.
We need, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad, and a lot of these illegal
Elections
immigrants
are
coming
bad.
in, they're trying
What?
to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically, and these people are trying to get them to vote, and that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm. Lost by a whisker. We didn't quite
That
make
was
it.
not
And
sarcastic.
we should just point out here as clarification,
It was
and you
not
know
sarcastic.
this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front
It
of
was
many
not
judges,
sarcastic.
many of them
No judge
Republican,
looked at it.
and said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing.
No, some
That's the other
judges did
thing.
look at it. You're
They
lying.
said we didn't
You're
have standing,
lying.
a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have
You
standing.
don't have- you didn't
That's
have no
how we lost.
standing.
If you look at the
Yeah,
facts,
he's
and
working-
I'd
there wasn't
love
no
to have you
sarcasm.
do a special
He's
on
lying.
It. I'll show you Georgia.
said, "No, I
and
didn't
I'll show
admit
you
that."
Wisconsin,
This
and
is
I'll show
crazy.
you Pennsylvania. And
How?
I'll show you, we
How
have
do you
so
have the
many
keys?
facts and statistics, but you know what?
What are
that
they?
doesn't matter because
What
we
are
have
the
to
facts
solve
and
the problem
statistics?
that we have right now.
What are
That's
the
old
facts and
news.
statistics?
And the problem that
This
we
is a
have
joke.
right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election.
Exactly.
That was won.
So how do we know
President
you won't
Biden,
do this shit
and
again?
yourself.
Since you don't
But
admit
I
you
do want to
lost,
ask
you
you
might
about
do this shit
something
again.
that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post
He's-
from
there was no
President Trump
sarcasm in I
about
lost
this
by a
upcoming
whisker.
election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's
This is
top lawyers
crazy.
responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
This is
Donald
sad.
Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly
She
he's
is
having
getting
a very
under his
difficult time
skin.
processing that.
He's not. He
But
can't handle
we
that.
cannot
He can't
afford
handle
to have
that.
a president
He
of the
can't handle
United
that.
States
He can't handle that.
Attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election.
He can't handle it.
And I'm going to tell you that
she is getting
I
under
have
his
traveled
skin.
the world as vice president of the United States.
What's scary is he has been lying so much and been fact-checked so much.
I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you.
And he don't care.
And they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and
you good, Cree, I appreciate you.
What over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election. It leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament.
You literally just showed me a screenshot where he lied 33 times and she lied 5. She did lie a few times, and when
that's deeply troubling, and the American
I tried to catch him when she did it.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond.
He's egregious.
Let me just say about world leaders.
He's been egregious.
Viktor Orban, one of the most respected.
She has
men,
lied, though.
They call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart.
But her lies
Minister
are
Hungary.
incomparable to his.
They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up?
Hey, appreciate the support.
Because you need Trump
from Canada
back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid.
No, I know. They both been lying, but I can't act like the lies are the same.
China was afraid of him. North Korea was
not the
afraid
same.
of him. Look at what's going
his
on
lies
with
are
North Korea,
egregious.
by the way.
He's the only one who's been fact-checked.
I ended the Nord
Her lies
Stream 2
aren't
pipeline,
provable lies. Like,
and
he
Biden
knows
put it
about
back
Project
on day
2025.
one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
I think she's lying about that.
In our country, he ended that.
If I lie
but
to you and
the
say
Russians build a pipeline going
your
all over Europe
sibling
and heading into Germany, the biggest
is dead
pipeline
versus
in the
like,
world. Look,
oh yeah, that dress
Viktor Orban
looks nice. Those lies
said
are not the same.
He said the most respected, most feared person
Those are two different
is Donald
lies.
Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw
all
at
lies
a
are not
debate
all
just a
lies
few
aren't
months ago,
lies. We know
if he weren't in
that's
that
not
debate,
true.
he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it.
Joe Biden ran 3 times for president.
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making.
I didn't know he said
President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate.
I did not know
how
he said
do
that.
it?
That's crazy if he said that.
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
Why are people acting like this situation is so black and white and it's not?
What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution.
That's how complicated it is. I don't know where.
Solution.
I don't have a position in that
shit
for
the Israeli it's too complicated in Israel and in equal measure for the Palestinians.
Like, yes, this is what.
But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to
the little bit I understand makes me know that I don't understand it enough to be picking sides about this.
It would have never started.
Look,
if I were president, Russia would have never ever, I know Putin very
Russia,
well.
we're talking about
and there was no threat of it either, by the way,
and Gaza.
for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress.
I was going to say, if he started talking about Ukraine and Russia, I was
she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around.
That's true.
Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and
boy, y'all see that sweat on Trump's lip
with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
How?
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
Yep,
it is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why.
Because he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything.
You are a disgrace. That is why.
She finna hit that ego.
We have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one.
He keep getting the last word.
That's weak
never let her get the
national
last
security
word.
By allowing every nation.
She'll end it and then they'll move on.
For the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're
always
weak
going to be that little bit that's going to keep it from happening, just like Trump with the border bill.
Incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia.
Oh, man. Are they going to get some water? He is...
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
She rattled that man. She rattled that man. Oh my gosh, she rattled that man. When she said his crowds was small, he lost it. I ain't never see him get that animated, bro. Like, what the hell? Oh my God, that shit was so damn funny. Cool. So what y'all thinking, man? What y'all think? How's it been looking to y'all so far? Like who's winning to y'all, or who's losing, whatever. What y'all think? So far, I think Kamala's acting more like the politician person, which is annoying when she like talks about shit that they didn't ask about. I don't like that. That's so fucking annoying, but that's that politician shit. And Trump is doing that politician shit while also just spitting bullshit and not even knowing what the fuck he's talking about. Like, I don't think they fact-checked her once. They fact-checked him like, I don't know how many fucking times about shit he said. And she's saying shit, where she's fucking up is, I still don't like the whole Project 2025 shit, because it's like, yeah, you could think he is involved with it, and I guess it works for people that don't know as much, in a sense. But if he's talked to people that's worked on Project 2025, that doesn't necessarily implicate him for being part of 2025. That's how I feel about it. Like, just because Trump may agree with some policies that's within it, that doesn't mean he's endorsing it as a whole. I do think that if he was to flat out say, I have nothing to do with 2025, and he becomes president, and then it's like, hey, Project 2025, shit, I feel like that would be the next Civil War. She's got to take her opportunity to make the point she needs to communicate. That's true. That's what she did in the opening. She literally ignored the question in her opening and just spoke on her plan. But I guess I would at least answer the question while you say the irrelevant shit. At least answer the question before you do all your extra spiel, or put it in there somehow, twist it. It sounded like a speech that was rehearsed that she had to get off in there, you know. Republican presidents have implemented Heritage Foundation plans for the last 30 years. Well, it definitely is going to be Republicans that's part of it for sure. But Trump's not even a Republican. Trump is MAGA. Trump isn't a Republican. He's not a Republican. If Trump loses, the Republican Party has to completely like freaking restructure itself, because it's in shambles. It's in shambles. You got liberals and Democrats who are more or less on the same side of a lot of things. Then you on the right, you got the far right, you got conservatives, you got Republicans, and you got MAGA. That's too much disarray on their side. It's too much. Reagan's platform was 60% from the Heritage platform. Yeah, I'm not. Wait, what do you mean he's not a Republican? Like, when I say he's not a traditional Republican. Trump isn't a traditional Republican. They're about law and order and structure and following things to the book and the law and all that shit. He ain't none of that. Trump is none of that. Only thing he cares about is business. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not a traditional Republican is what I meant. He's indebted to Heritage Foundation for his policy working on it. Is he indebted as far as because he's a part of the Republican Party, or because he wants to implement? That's why. But Paisley, that's exactly what I'm saying. The fact that he won't openly accept Project 2025 is why I say he's not a traditional Republican. Because granted, 2025 is a little bit more extreme than even most Republicans. You feel me? Like, a lot of that shit is really extreme, but a lot of that shit is shit they agree with. Which is why I say, like, you know he's not a traditional Republican, because he don't even agree with that shit. Definitely extreme as fuck. Doesn't matter. He's weak and will be manipulated by the maniac Christian nationalists. I don't think the Christian nationalists can manipulate him. They donate to him. They own it. All right. It's back on. Is back on.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight.
Right, because he said so.
How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question.
Because he says so. That's why.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives. that are being
for it to stop, somebody kind of got to
being
win.
Killed by the millions. It's the
somebody
millions.
has to win.
It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people.
What do you mean? Not pay?
You take a look at what's
NATO,
happening.
Bro.
We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
So you didn't play golf when you were
They threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president.
What does him being president got to do with him running for president?
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and
why he
just
can't
get it
answer
done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal because we
he
have
doesn't
to
want
stop
him to
all
win.
of these human lives
he doesn't want him to
from
win.
being destroyed.
That has
I
nothing
want to take
to
this
do
to
with
Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president.
Really?
And that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence.
Presidents never take vacations.
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania?
And he said he was. It's not even a secret. He said he was going on vacation.
For the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
That's why they like him.
President Harris, thank you. We've heard from
That's
both
why
of you
they
on
like
Ukraine
him
tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
Because,
I
like
wanted
she
her to
said, they
respond to
will
something
eat
you
him
said
for lunch.
earlier,
Fuck out of here.
Please, I'll give you a minute here.
Look, he's still trying to talk.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started.
Biden
She
was
was the
definitely too
emissary.
old,
They sent her in to negotiate
I don't think his
with
mind is gone.
Zelensky
but
and
he's
Putin.
too old.
And she did.
Trump is
and
too.
the war started 3 days later.
is too old,
And
too.
that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country.
He's
She
one
goes
of the
down
most
as the worst
effective
vice
presidents.
president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir
Yeah,
Putin.
Biden
Vice
is
President
too
Harris,
old.
have you
He's
ever
too
met
old.
Vladimir
but
Putin?
his,
Can you clarify
his
tonight?
brain isn't gone.
Yet
I don't
again,
think
I said
Biden's
at the
mind
beginning of
is
this
gone.
debate,
He's
you're
just
gonna
too
hear a bunch of
old. He's
lies
just
coming
showing
from
signs
this
of
fellow.
aging.
And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should. As a leader, upholding international rules and norms. As a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did
Biden went on vacation after the DNC, Mars.
He got these countries.
He was at the first day of the
28 countries at the
DNC,
time
and then he went on
to pay up.
vacation.
He said, "I've never seen." He's the head of
And it's
NATO.
the end of his
He said,
term.
"I've
He
never
can't
seen."
do much.
For years, we were
And even
paying
at the end,
almost
he was
all of
trying
NATO.
to get that
We were
Supreme
being ripped
Court,
off by European
get those
nations,
Supreme
both on
Court
trade
changes
and on NATO.
implemented.
I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before. If you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate.
He was golfing
and we
a
witnessed
lot.
a poignant moment today on
In the
Capitol
early
Hill,
parts
honoring
of his
the soldiers
term.
who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agree with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result,
I don't think
America's
Biden's sick. I
taxpayers
think
are
he's
not
just
paying
old.
the $300 million
just
a
old.
day we were paying for that endless
I don't
war.
think he's sick.
And as of today,
He's old
there
as
is
hell.
not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down.
His aging is catching up. Like
the Afghan government.
He
negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the
It's
Taliban.
showing. I'm not denying that.
The negotiation
I just don't think
involved
he's
the Taliban getting 5,000
unaware of. They're saying he got dementia. He don't have
terrorists
dementia.
Released.
For
And
him to
get
be
this,
able to remember
now
all
get
them
this.
facts and shit, he don't have dementia.
And the president
He's just
at the
old
time
and slow.
invited the Taliban to
It don't
Camp
look good as a
David,
president at all. He don't need to be
place
president.
of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president,
she didn't want to say it,
invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So,
Afghanistan was going to be ugly regardless. It was no...
The Taliban was killing our soldiers.
Do Afghanistan perfectly.
A lot of them with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban. Because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved.
What are you talking about?
Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers.
Not only that, Biden came into a term that was came into COVID. That's fucked up. And the thing is, people say all that about Biden. Biden aged probably 15 years because of his term. Biden came in and did a lot of work.
The agreement said you have to do
all his life. He was trying to be president, and he did it and did a lot.
They didn't do it. The agreement was
the people that it didn't
terminated by
they don't
us
see it. That's
because
just what it
they
is.
didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these
Biden
people
was putting
did the worst
Biden did a lot to be a
in my opinion, the most
president.
Embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
Yep, Clinton is in better shape probably.
I want to move on now to
on a day-to-day basis more than
Mr. President,
Biden.
You recently said of Vice President Harris, quote,
and he did
I didn't
8
know
years
she was
as
black
president
until a number of
they
years
were 30
ago,
years younger,
when she
had an
happened
easier
to turn
time. Yeah,
black,
Obama
and
probably
now she
had an
wants to be
easier
known as
time
black.
than Biden's
I want to ask
4
a bigger
years.
picture
Biden's
question
4
here
years
tonight.
was a lot.
Why do you believe it's
Biden had a
appropriate to
rough
weigh
4
in on the
years
racial
of shit to
identity of
deal
your
with.
opponent?
I don't,
and
I don't
imagine
care.
that after trying to be president for fucking
I don't
40
care.
years.
You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
I couldn't care less.
Words.
You brought it up.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and
she didn't
I'll
put
say
it out.
that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career,
The warranty is up.
attempted to use race
funny.
to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States.
Yep.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands,
at all. I do think they need an age limit on these politicians. There's an age limit on a bunch of other jobs. Well, I don't know if it's legally an age limit on other jobs.
A neighbor.
But there should be an age limit on this shit. This is ridiculous.
Constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, Can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American
70
people?
then is not 70 now.
Knowing that
That's very
regardless
true.
of people's color or the language
That's
their
very
grandmother
true.
speaks, we all
70
have
and
the same dreams and
76 is
aspirations
not
and want a
70
president
now.
who invests in
That's
those,
true.
not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country.
No,
There's
what?
never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not
He don't
guilty.
even feel
But
bad.
this is a person.
He don't even feel bad
has to
that
stretch
of what they
back
went through.
Years, 40, 50 years ago.
He doesn't even
because
regret
there's
it
nothing
now.
I built one of the greatest
doesn't take-
economies
he
in
thinks
the
he's
history
perfect.
of the world.
Trump thinks he's
and I'm going
perfect.
to build it again. It's going
He
to be
thinks he's
bigger,
perfect.
better, and stronger.
This is crazy.
But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy
Trump
is.
isn't human.
Their oil policies.
And he's not
every
even
single
pretending to
policy.
be one.
And remember this.
He's
she
not
is
pretending
Biden.
to be
You know,
one.
she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman. She says, she is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad.
He don't even.
And
He's
she can't
talking
get
about
away with
everything.
that.
He don't care.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly.
He doesn't.
Clearly,
He
I am
doesn't
not
give
Joe
a fuck.
Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism
Like
about
he acts
what
like
we can do instead of always disparaging
inflation
the American
can never
people.
exist.
I believe
it's
in
better than what
we
it
can
was
do
for you,
to
bro.
Strengthen our small businesses.
unemployment
which
is at a
why I
good
have
rate.
plan.
Is at a
Let's
good
talk
percentage
about
too.
Our plans.
So it's just like.
And let's compare the
Bro,
plans.
stop with those
I have
talking
a
points.
plan
Pick other shit
to
that you can
give
actually.
startup businesses
rail
$50,000
them
tax
on.
deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in
Trump
that
ain't
most
talked
critical
about anything
stage of
like
your
that.
child's
He
development.
hasn't
I have a
said
plan
anything.
that is about
hasn't said anything.
allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering
did she?
help
I think
with
she's
down
not
payment
because
of $25,000
that was mostly
down
Biden.
payment assistance for
I
first-time
guess
home
maybe
buyers.
she want to talk about what's
That's
new for
the
her
kind of
versus
conversation I
because
believe, David,
we assume
that people really
she's
want
gonna
tonight,
keep
as opposed to a conversation that
what
is
Biden was
constantly
doing.
about
I'm
belittling
assuming that's what she's doing.
and name calling. Let's turn the page.
I'm
President
assuming
Harris.
that's what's
Thank
happening.
you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on.
No,
President
they got to
Trump,
move on. You have
Let's turn to
move on.
policy,
She has
please.
a plan
No,
to defund
don't let
the
him
police.
talk.
She has a plan to confiscate
shouldn't have let him
everybody's
talk.
gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere
You went back.
else.
You
Okay,
didn't
That's
even
what
got
her
nothing
plan
to
is
say.
until just recently.
Kamala, let it go.
Lindsay, go ahead.
Let it go.
Trump,
No, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
Kamala, let it go.
Vice
One
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare.
Yeah,
quote,
the
unless
plan,
we
I
can
think,
do
was for him
something
to be
much better.
transitional.
Last month, you said,
But
quote,
since
"We're
he had
working
already
on
beat
it."
Trump,
So
it made
tonight,
sense to
9 years
do it
after you
again. I
first
think that's what
started
happened
running, do you
since
have a
Trump ran
plan,
again.
and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always
But the
was.
Republicans
It's
got to
not very
rebuild.
good
It's
today.
going to be like
And
they got to
what I said,
rebuild,
that if
and
we
it's going to
come
be
up with
hard
something, and we are
because
working
they
on
have
things,
nothing established.
we're
The
gonna do it,
Democrats
and
got
we're
a
gonna
lot of
replace it.
people in the
But
background
remember this,
that can
I
potentially
inherited
make
Obamacare
it
because
to be
Democrats
president,
wouldn't
whether
change
Kamala
it.
does
They
4
wouldn't
or
vote
8
for it.
years.
They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote
They
to
have
change
people
it. If
to
they would
come
have done
behind
that, we
her.
would have had a much
The
better
Republicans
got
gotta
to
rebuild.
Obamacare.
Unless
But the
Nikki
Democrats
Haley or
came
something
up,
runs,
they wouldn't vote for it.
and I don't
had
know
a
how
choice
old
to
she
make when
is.
I was
I
president.
don't know how old she
Do I
is.
save it and make
But
it as
if
good
Nikki
as it
Haley
can
don't
be?
run,
Never going to be great.
I don't
Or
know
do
what the
I
Republicans
let
can
it
do.
rot?
I don't
And
know
I
what they can
felt
do.
I had an obligation,
they-
even
they-
though politically
they gotta
it would have
rebuild
been
after
good to
MAGA
just
done
let it
fucked up
rot
their
and
party.
let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make.
Liz Cheney?
Do I save
You think
it
she's a good
and make
candidate
it
for
as
president?
good as it can be, or do I let it rot?
I'm not saying she's not.
I did the right thing.
I just haven't heard that.
But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population,
Trump hasn't
less
written
money
anything
and
down.
be
That's how
better
you know he
healthcare
doesn't
than
think.
Obamacare, then I would absolutely
That's how you know
it.
he don't think.
But until then, I'd run
Kamala
it
has
as
been
good
writing
as
notes
it can
and
be
shit.
run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a
But
plan.
Adam is endorsing
concepts of
Kamala.
a
That
plan.
won't help.
I'm not president right now.
He endorsed
But
Kamala.
if
That won't help him.
we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and
Hell,
options
Liz did too.
we have
You name
to
it.
do that.
You naming
And you'll be hearing
Republicans
about it in the
that's endorsing
not-too-distant
Kamala.
future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people
That's
stand.
fair, but do you
When
think
Donald
the
Trump was president,
GOP would
60 times
welcome them
he
with
tried
open
to get
arms
rid of
is
the
what I'm
Affordable
saying.
Care Act. 60
Crazy.
times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero.
Yep.
The late,
That was in
great
my
John
video.
McCain, I will never forget that night, walked
said-
onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow
John
Medicare to
McCain in
negotiate
my video
drug
because
prices.
that
He
was
never did.
crazy
We
what
did.
he said about
And now
him.
we have capped the cost of
What
insulin
John
at
McCain went
$35
through
a
and
month.
for what Trump
Since I've been
said,
vice
that's
president,
crazy.
We have
It's
capped the cost of
unacceptable.
prescription
It's
medication for
unacceptable.
seniors at $2,000
It's
a year.
unacceptable.
And when I am
For somebody that's
president,
trying to be
we will do
president,
that
fuck
for all
outta
people,
here.
understanding that
I don't give
the
a fuck how
value
much
I
you
bring to
disagree with his
this
policy.
is that
You don't disrespect
access to
somebody like
healthcare
him
should be a
for what the
right,
fuck he went
and
through
not just
and
a
why
privilege of
he
those
went
who
through
can
it.
afford
Stop.
it. And the
That's
plan
crazy to me.
has
It
to
pisses
be
me off.
to strengthen the Affordable Care Act,
And
not
for you to
get
be a
rid of
draft
it
dodger for the same
fast as
fucking
it
war
was
he was
in
in.
terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake.
Paisley, it's in
Number
my
one,
videos.
John McCain
You'll
fought
see in my videos. It's
Obamacare
like
for
1 or
10
2
years.
videos ago
But it
that I
wasn't
made a
only
video
him.
about
It
Trump.
was all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know
It's
what?
called The Real Anti-American.
We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
That's another thing she doesn't
Yep.
want to give.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change.
Okay.
President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say
Does
that
Trump
we have to have
accept-
clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate
That
change
is- yes,
an
John McCain is a
existential threat.
fucking
The question to
patriot,
you
bro.
both tonight is what
For
would you
real.
do to fight climate change? And Vice
Patriot,
President Harris,
if I've
we'll
ever
start with
seen
you.
one.
1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax.
I was just going to say, does he
And
even
what
accept
we know
climate
is
change?
that it is very real.
I
You
was
ask
just going to
anyone
say that.
who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as Vice President over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been Vice President. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs.
Yep.
And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President
Harris, I didn't see his son
speak. It didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs.
No, they didn't.
This last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico.
Ooh,
in
that's
many
crazy.
Cases owned
I got to
by
look
China.
into that. What's his son's name?
They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker,
this how the
whether
Republicans
it's in Detroit
feel about
or
RFK.
South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country
I don't think you can post links in my chat.
Horrible.
So
we have
you might
nothing
just tell me
because
the
they refuse.
I don't think you can post links in
Biden
here.
doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Oh, my God. Hold on, y'all. I'll finish my drink. I got to go get some more.
The ABC News presidential debate.
I got to go get some more to drink. I'll be right back.
Baywatch is a fantasy.
Baywatch was sexy.
Baywatch was the #1 show in the world. When you hear that theme song,
I had no idea how much fun I was going to have.
It was addicting. People were just eating that stuff alive.
it was a wild time, and I was a wild chick.
Jason Momoa exploded.
Carmen was a bombshell.
Pamela Anderson was an icon.
Pamela was the sweet girl from Canada who came to get the American dream.
I'm really proud of everything I've done. Almost.
Baywatch was a whirlwind of epic highs and bitter lows.
It was a lot of pressure.
Everybody was disposable, and if you didn't fit into their brand, you were gone.
Greed, lust, fame.
Everyone likes to watch sexy things.
Betrayal is one of the hardest types of trauma to overcome.
This is her knight in shining armor.
Everything felt right. All of a sudden, I found this hidden folder. I opened it. I don't think I can say it. I'm sorry. It's shocking.
My stomach just dropped.
He just really didn't think I had it in me to do something. So I did.
Betrayal, A Father's Secret, the all-new season on Hulu.
You're 24. He's 54.
Yeah. It just seemed like I had met my soulmate.
You fired 4 times.
Disconnect August, No Remorse, Crazy.
Friday.
What you talking about, Mars? What disconnect and No Remorse, Crazy? What you talking about?
The center of the so-called Black Swan trial.
Here we go. You haven't spoken out before. Why did you decide to talk now?
The stunning all-new 2020 premieres Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC. Nominations, mornings, evenings, late night, weekends, streaming 24/7, 40 Emmy nominations. Thank you for making ABC News America's #1 news.
I'm sorry.
America, every Friday.
The hottest trends, John McCain's son endorses Kamala Harris. Okay, that's the name. Okay, that's not hard to remember. I got to see that.
Right stuff. Yes, and save
I got to see that
too. The Right Stuff. Fridays on GMA. You're gonna love it.
This is Impact by Nightline.
Are you kidding me?
My sense was that everybody around him was afraid of him.
Brittany describes having a secret abortion that not even her family knew about.
What's going on with Kate?
What is the relationship like between Harry and William today?
What did people start to say?
You look great. Are you on Ozempic?
I told the kids, I said, I'm not even gonna let you eat breakfast until you get your chores done. She talks about tough love.
I try to give everybody. I compare all these networks to see how they report on certain info, like the language they use and stuff like that.
Abuse?
Yep, that's him.
Yep.
Ready? Does your church protect sexual
I don't
predators?
hate anybody. I don't even hate Fox.
Watch season yet.
Even I recognize Fox for what it is, but I don't hate them.
Impact by Nightline.
I know what they be.
The all-new season premieres this September only on Hulu.
If you were coming of age in the 1980s,
oh, that's so I knew I wasn't. I know I'm not tripping in because I'm like, dang, what's his name? I didn't know his son's name. So if he hasn't spoken publicly,
different.
That's the
if
reason.
you could have the Brat Pack name not exist, I hated the Brat Pack. What a disaster.
Why did we take it as an offense?
I do think that,
I'm not gonna say we were the
objectively
Beatles.
speaking,
Like
1985. I don't think Kamala's perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
Let's go.
We are heading into the
I don't think Kamala's perfect, but Trump has literally looked like a fucking idiot this entire time, and I think objectively speaking, there's no way you could say otherwise. Like, I don't care who you voting for. Trump,
Philadelphia,
he's not making no sense.
Here again,
he's not
David
saying
Moore
anything
and Lindsay
that makes
Davis.
sense.
Welcome back tonight.
He's
the time has
lying.
come for
He's
closing
saying
statements
shit
and
after
Vice
he's
President
been
Harris.
corrected.
Begin with you.
He acts like he's never made a
So
mistake.
I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country.
Yeah, that's fair, Paisley.
One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward.
Yep.
But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving
that don't look good,
hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living.
You make bad choices or you're a bad leader.
In what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world
if you fired
and ensuring
everybody,
that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including
or you're a bad leader.
Respecting our military
That's all
and ensuring
it is.
we have the most lethal fighting force
that turnover
in
rate
the
is
world.
absurd.
I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client.
Yeah, and that's when he's about fired. Them people
and I'll
quit.
tell you, as a prosecutor,
because they weren't trying to be his lackey.
Asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to
really
do all these
be
wonderful things.
He going to say she should have did it as vice
hasn't
president.
She done it
because she's the vice president.
She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix
do
the
it
border.
As vice president.
They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now.
Yeah, his family's nowhere.
That beautiful White House. Go to the Capitol. Get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it.
Puts loyalty above
because you
everything.
believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're
she was
a
vice
failing
president.
nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East.
His record isn't even great.
We have wars
People just
going
liked him
on
because he had money.
with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry.
He's not saying he's going to make anything great. He's just saying they're going to make shit bad.
Military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here
Assembly
at
laughed
ABC
at Trump to his
News.
face during the
Good
speech. Yeah, I'm said I'm sorry, that's the alcohol. The UN Assembly, yes.
And we are here live on
I also
ABC
would like
with
to
our post-debate
count on negotiating
comments.
again
I'm
with John
Martha
with
Raddatz.
the
It was
after
a
11. Yeah, man, like
lively
he
debate
acted.
from the
You can't.
economy to
Trump
abortion
played
to
a part in the
They had
Afghanistan
it all, and
retreat.
it was historic.
Them leaving.
John Carl,
He played
fiery.
a part. And there was no clean way to do
Wow,
that.
wow, that was quite a debate.
I feel
and
still
I'm Jonathan Carl here with,
unsatisfied
of course,
about all
Mary
of
Bruce
it.
and Rachel Scott.
Rachel
Our
Scott, she the one that
reporters
interviewed him
across
at
the news
NABJ.
division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks. You can find all of that on abcnews.com. But I would like to replay the moment at the very start of this debate.
How she went to shake his hand and he didn't. She
The
went to
handshake.
shake his hand.
And if you look,
Let's have a good debate.
Look, yep.
Thank you.
That's gonna be bad on him.
I mean,
it's gonna
wait
look
a
bad
moment.
on
First
him.
of all, 'cause we hadn't seen a handshake. We hadn't seen a handshake in a long time.
She initiated that one.
And
Yes,
not,
she
I mean,
did.
not only did she
Immediately.
initiate it, she walked over
he didn't
to
even
him
go for it.
and
He
sought
didn't
him
go
out,
for it.
put the hands out, and also made the first words.
And probably had a plan if he hadn't put his hand out either.
Interesting. So more at the bottom line, what did you think?
I think clearly what Kamala Harris wanted to do was be the candidate of hope, the candidate of the future. Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. I think we saw him going from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at her, to just angry. I mean, really yelling at
she
some
got under
points,
his
trying
skin,
to make,
boy.
to make his points. I don't think we heard a lot of policy and plans on either side of that, despite those questions over and over
Is he a
again.
germaphobe?
But what you had was that optic. You had Kamala Harris looking over, baiting him again and again and again.
She did bait
the
him.
microphones
She
were
definitely
muted
baited
when
him.
they weren't speaking, but many times she didn't need a microphone. You watch Donald Trump get mad, scowl through things. And, you know, John, we were all talking leading up to this about how this would go, what Donald Trump you would see. I think he had a plan for talking
That's
about
crazy.
what
If
he
he a
saw
germaphobe, that's crazy.
as a next term.
Oh,
but then he was
interesting.
talking about
Well,
rumors
you're running for president.
about
You got to
people
shake people's
eating
hands
their
and hug people people,
neighbor's
man.
pets, so it really devolved into that.
I mean, look, Kamala Harris didn't really explain some of the big questions that were out there about why she changed her policy.
I would give it to him if he said he a germaphobe.
Part of the reason is
I'll
Donald
give it to
Trump
him.
really
Might
was
be
not
fake.
effective in bringing the debate to her. I would agree with you.
If
I
he's
think
really a
that he
germaphobe,
looked
I'll believe it.
Not just
He's
angry,
probably fake.
but also rattled. And
yes,
in
he got
contrast,
rattled. He definitely got rattled.
Harris, who again, much of the world doesn't know. Harris looked like she belonged on the stage.
Yep.
Looked like she
I want to see
is somebody that could serve as president.
See if Fox
and that is certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you, the Harris campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night, that she was in command, Trump. That she did look presidential, and that she was able, they feel, to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel that the strongest example of that was that exchange on abortion, where she was able really to blame Donald Trump directly to his face. I mean, she said, what you are putting women through is unconscionable. Yes, she goaded him. She flat out trolled him many times, got him off message, but she also talked directly to voters, even inviting them to a Trump rally to underscore that central argument in her campaign that she says he's only out for himself, that she argues she's out for the American people.
Rachel?
Yeah, well, look, the Trump campaign is going to be seizing on the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris did not
don't have no
do a great job today
over,
really explaining her policy shifts, right? And that is what they have been seizing on. They're really trying to define her for voters when voters have a lot of questions about her policy positions. At the same time, though, almost every single thing that Vice President Kamala Harris said tonight got under Trump's skin. And that is exactly what his allies and his advisors did not want to see. I can tell you, I do not think that part of Donald Trump's debate prep was people eating dogs in Springfield or comparing rally sizes. They wanted him to stay focused on the issues, especially the ones that he has an edge on Harris, economy and immigration.
I mean, you want to get under Donald Trump's skin.
I guess that's
true. The people
that's the only reason that's
and
true.
that was something else. Martha, you have?
I have with us right now Governor Tim Walz, of course, the Democratic vice presidential candidate. Welcome, Governor Walz. How are you feeling? What's your reaction to the debate tonight?
Martha, I'm feeling great because what I knew, and I think so many knew, and now many Americans know, is you saw a president for all America in Kamala Harris. You saw the confidence, you saw the vision, you saw the poise, and you saw the compassion for people, understanding she spoke about an economy that moves us forward, moves all of us forward, lets everybody be a part of it. And she continued to lay that out, whether it's reproductive freedom or how we start small businesses or making home ownership easier. And on the other side, you saw a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump angry.
Come on, mention his age.
And as you've been discussing, talking about things that are deeply concerning because they make no impact on the American public. He shouldn't be anywhere near the White House. And I have to tell you, if it weren't so dangerous, it reminds you of an old man yelling at the clouds. That was his thing. Get off my yard. That's what he did all night. Contrast that with the poise of Harris laying out the question.
Dang, don't do that to Tim.
So I think
don't do it to Tim.
The whole country can see what happened tonight. We'll keep pushing forward. That's the way that the country wants to see our politics be. She laid it out clearly. Donald Trump brought nothing tonight. Anger, resentment.
Yeah.
Governor Walz, I do want to ask you, she did not answer questions on abortion restrictions. She never really answered that question.
Yeah, I wish she
did.
Can you clear
that up?
I wish she did.
The Harris-Walz ticket stands on that?
Can't hear him.
Certainly, and you couldn't get any different than this. The reinstitution of Roe versus Wade was
well,
the
yes,
law of
she
the
did
land,
say she wanted to reinstitute it for what it was.
For 52 years, you saw this in there, and him pushing back to the states, she's exactly right. It's people like Amanda in Texas, which everybody saw on the stage in Chicago.
At least Tim Walz and Kamala on the same page. Trump and JD are not on the same page.
She's been absolutely clear on this. Everything Donald Trump said, that is untrue. The clarity of this is Roe. When you have Roe, you have the protections in place where women make their own decisions with their health care providers, not Donald Trump.
Okay, thanks so very much for joining us.
That's
Governor
fair.
Walz.
She just said she wants to reinstate
we have
Roe
the other side
v. Wade, which is
Senator J.D. Vance.
That's what it was. So
Donald
she want to do
Trump's
that.
Running mate joining us
J.D.
now.
Vance,
Senator Vance, thank you for joining us.
What he finna say? Come on, lie.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
Come on, lie.
So I want to get to one part in the debate where you.
I want to see a J.D. Tim Walz debate. That would be
Donald Trump
nuts.
was asked if he would veto a national abortion ban. He didn't answer the question. Suggested, I guess, that he wouldn't, and then it was pointed out that you, in fact, said not that long ago that he would veto a national abortion ban. Can you explain the mix-up here?
Well, I think the president's been very clear that he doesn't want a national abortion ban. I think in some ways he finds the question a little bit ridiculous because why are we asking him about legislation that's never going to actually happen and why he would veto it or not veto it when he says very explicitly that he doesn't support a national abortion ban.
Then why can't he say
he wants
that?
These policies to be made by the states. But I think there's a deeper and more important issue here in this debate, which is that you had Kamala Harris.
My issue with that is you can say that about anything.
Platitude after
the people
platitude after platitude.
One gonna look better than the other. Of course, the winner is going to look better than the loser. Yes,
put their kids
but
in a
it's
house
not like
on
it's
platitudes.
like
And Kamala Harris
somebody
had a
did
lot
100%
to say,
and somebody
but
did
very little actual substance behind it, or how she's going to lower grocery prices, secure the border,
somebody
and
did
make housing more
80%, and the other person did 12. Like it's not comparable.
She can't run on.
I don't like that. Like
she apparently can't run on much of her plans either because it's just a lot of slogans and not a whole lot of substance.
I really feel underwhelmed.
Why won't he just say that?
I wish Kamala did better.
And by the way,
but I'm not going to sit here and act like it was like 80, 74. No. It was like 80 and 12.
No, I hadn't spoken
Trump's
to him about
showing
it because,
was
again,
absolutely
Donald Trump thinks the question is absurd because he doesn't support a national abortion ban, and he's been explicit about it.
It was unacceptable.
John, I think that it's
not
so
presidential.
preposterous for the media to focus so much on an issue where Donald Trump has been crystal clear and not on the fact that people can't afford groceries and housing because of Kamala Harris's policies. This election is actually quite simple, and Kamala Harris and apparently the media would like to distract Americans on issues, by the way, that Donald Trump's been crystal clear about, but they're not talking nearly enough. This debate didn't talk nearly enough about the fact that Americans are struggling because they can't afford groceries, they can't afford housing, and a lot of their kids are dying of fentanyl overdoses because Kamala Harris has let the Mexican drug cartels take over the southern border. This is a disgrace what's going on in our country, John, and we could do so much better if we just had better leadership. We've got the best workers, the most beautiful country, the best natural resources, but Kamala Harris's leadership is squandering the great benefits of this country. It's why we've got to get back to Donald Trump's leadership.
Senator, by the way, I asked because he hadn't been crystal clear and he said something different than what you said. That's why I was seeking clarification.
Exactly.
But let me ask you
about
this.
Stupid.
Just very quickly.
Y'all look stupid.
I heard Donald Trump
before
not on the
this
same
debate
page describe Kamala Harris as, I'll just read a few of them, a low IQ individual, somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity to be president, really dumb, unable to put two sentences together. Is that what you saw on the stage tonight?
Yep.
John, what I saw was a lot of slogans. I think the American people are smart, and Kamala Harris talks to them like they're children. If the American people are smart,
they know that you're lying.
She repeats these ridiculous platitudes where if you actually think about what she said, you realize that it doesn't make any sense. She talks a lot about her plans, but then her plans, when you analyze the substance, don't make any sense. And more importantly, John, the American people don't get fed on plans. She has been the vice president for 3.5 years. What she can't do, refuses to do, and has no ability to do is to say, I accomplished lower prices because she didn't, or I accomplished lower housing prices because she didn't, or I secured the southern border because she didn't do that.
You're damn near in training.
Vice president, and the fundamental question is, do we want to give her a promotion? I think the answer has to be no, John.
All right, Senator Vance, thank you for joining us. Mary.
One thing both sides can agree on, this was a consequential night in this race. More reaction when we come back. Stay with us.
I ain't gonna stay on this more reaction show. Oof. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I ain't gonna watch this on stream. Y'all could watch it without my commentary. I think this was fun. At the end of the day, I think that I wish I got more out of that. Right. That's what I'm saying. Like Paisley, they don't know. They just want to attack without even having a real resolution to the attack. That's the problem. At least with Democrats, when they attack, they have something else to offer. Trump just attacks with nothing to offer. Tariffs. The man told you economists who put their life into this and understand the economy to a T, saying that what you're saying, and she verified who said it. They said, what you want to do is detrimental, and what she wants to do is more beneficial. Even if it's not perfect, I don't think there's no such thing as a perfect economy. So what she's doing is better for consumers, and what you're proposing is worse. She cited who said it, so you can go and check that. Trump will say, no, it's not true. No, I said it. I said that it's not true because I said it's not true. Believe it. And it's like, come on, bro. So I think at the end of the day that Trump probably sealed his deal at the end of this. I don't know what America's going to do. I don't think Trump will the fact is Trump's not gaining anything from this. If there was anybody that was honestly wholeheartedly on the fence and didn't know what to do, Kamala should have swayed you if you knew you wanted to vote one way or another. If you knew that maybe like this debate, because I don't think they're going to debate no more. So if you was going to debate one way or the other and this debate was going to help you do that, Kamala did her job. If you're going to vote for Trump and you nothing was going to change that, then it don't matter. But it was nothing that nothing happened. So Kamala's not pulling any of MAGA towards her with today. That's a fact. Kamala's not pulling MAGA today. I don't think she did so stellar that it was like, oh my God. She had some zingers though. She definitely had some zingers, and his didn't land because I'm sorry, y'all. For him to not want the mics on and say, I'm talking, that sound familiar. It was like, bro, her mic was off. Nobody heard her but you, and it don't hit the way you thought it was finna hit, bro. But when she said, I just want to remind you that you running against me and not Joe Biden, like that shit landed. When she fucking talked about his small crowds, that man got so rattled he didn't know what the fuck to do. That shit was so funny, bro. But she had better zingers. She spoke on policy. She had coherent answers. Even if it wasn't a direct answer to what the question was, which they both didn't always do that. Both of them weren't fully answering questions that were asked. They wanted to be political about it and just say whatever. Her answer was at least coherent. He doesn't state anything that's true. He doesn't say anything that's true. Sorry. Oh, GOP screwed us, Obamacare, by refusing to allow folks onto existing government plans for 100,000 government workers. Like, this was facts. If they had permitted that, it would have been a smoother rollout and turned cheaper and better. You must research 2025 and his involvement. He has no other plan. Agenda 47 isn't 1-on-1 with 25. That he has what's it called? Agenda 47. And all his people are from Project. They will implement it anyway. He doesn't have a clue. I hope not. But I appreciate any and everybody that made it to this point in the stream. You know, go back ABC, wherever you want to watch. They're still covering after conversations about it. Paisley, I really appreciate you, especially for you being new on my channel. I got to give it up to you. Coming through, you stuck with me through most of this stream. I appreciate you for being. I hope I earned your subscription to this point, if not already. But thank you. Thank any and everybody that came through the stream, whether you commented and watched or not. Appreciate it. Hope I earned your subscription. If not that, a like or a comment. If not one of them, then all three. And I'm going to catch you on the next one. There's going to be a lot of content being rolled out over this weekend, political and not political. Just hope y'all enjoy it because I enjoy y'all supporting it. Paisley, thank you again because you rocked with me this whole time. But until next time, y'all, I'm going to catch y'all in the next video. Peace.